few things to get started on. So one of the first questions you're going to kind of have to think about, and there really isn't a right or a wrong, it kind of depends on how you're planning on using the bike. But whether or not you're going to get e-assist on your bike. Cargo bikes themselves are bigger and heavier bikes. They're designed to be carrying a lot of stuff. And so we definitely sell a lot more electric cargo bikes than we do just normal regular bikes. So it's something you kind of have to weigh out. I guess what most people are kind of thinking about when they're making this decision is, what do they want? What do they foresee the use to be? You got to be thinking about how much you're carrying, but you also have to be thinking about what your distance is. So maybe you're just simply wanting to get to the neighborhood elementary school. The elementary school's, you know, a half a mile away, and there's no hills, and you're going to be able to do 2 kids fine with that load. If you're thinking, okay, we are really considering staying at 1 car, like we're at a point now where we have to start thinking about transportation a little bit differently. And we've gotten away with 1 car up to now, but as we're feeling a little bit of a pull towards a 2nd car. If you are thinking of the cargo bike as something to help the family stay car light, now all of a sudden you need something that you can jump on with a load and maybe go 8-9 miles without having to think too hard about it. 8-9 miles, you're going to think pretty hard about if it's a non-assisted bicycle. Whereas no, if it's a power assist bike, you are definitely going to be capable of doing it. It's a matter of getting comfortable with how you're loading things on the bike. It's a matter of getting comfortable with the handling. These are things that just come with a little bit of time. It's not any tricky thing with cars. It's no different with a cargo bike than with any other bike. You get a new bike, it's going to take you a little while to adjust and get comfortable, get stable. And once you're at that point, yeah, going 8 or 9 miles is something you can do. Riding from, say, uptown Minneapolis, where we are, to the state capitol, that's definitely a long ways. I'm going to want to have power assist for something like that. So it kind of depends. Think, maybe, drop a pin on a map and kind of think about the places that you want to go. One reason that can just hold you at non-power assist is budget. There's no way around it. The bikes are expensive, and they're more expensive when there's power assist. We are going to be adding $2,000 to $3,000 at least to be adding power assist. One thing just worth noting while I'm talking about power assist versus non, if you are shopping for a bike that is a power assisted bike, I would highly recommend getting a bike with torque assist. There's 2 different types of electric assist systems. One is cadence. Cadence just means as soon as you're turning the pedals, it's on, and it's on at whatever level you've got it set at. So if you are pedaling very lightly, but you're in the highest power setting, it's going to give it all to you. So it's something you have to be very careful of. Whereas torque assist, which is Bosch and Shimano are kind of the 2 premium systems out there. Both Bosch and Shimano are using torque assist. What that means is it's reflecting what you put into it. And so even if you're in the highest power setting, when you get to the parking lot that you're kind of negotiating through to get to the bike rack, all you have to do is not push quite so hard on the pedals, and you'll be just fine. So in other words, the torque assist is just extremely intuitive. I mean, that's kind of what it comes down to, is you're not really having to think about power assist or not. It's just giving you a little bit of boost. The harder you push, the more boost you will get. Also, you could think about how, what type of bike. So we're going to be learning about front loaders, long tails, and mid tails. So those are 3 different types of cargo bikes that we're going to be talking about. If you're thinking front loader, that type of bike For one, there aren't that many non-assisted front loaders out there. Not saying they don't exist, they definitely exist. There just aren't that many of them out there. And there are not that many of them out there because those bikes are quite a bit heavier. And so all of a sudden, that range is really going to shrink down. So it's just something to be aware of. It's best if you could come in, do some test riding. We have bikes that are power assisted and non-power assisted. I will say last year, our cargo bike sales, we were at 75%. So at this point, this has all happened in a very short period of time, but as 2020 was like the growth of selling a lot of electric, and it's just gone up. And last year, yeah, obviously the great majority of the cargo bikes people were choosing were electric. Okay, so I just mentioned there's front loaders, there's long tails, and there's mid tails. I'm going to start up here with the front loaders. So these are two front loading cargo bikes. Urban Arrow right here kind of puts the kids in their own little helmet. This is the biggest selling front loading cargo bike that we have had actually since we've started carrying it. So 4 or 5 years. It is a bike that's just easy to load, easy to carry stuff in. It comes stock with the seat right here for 2 kids with 2 5-point seatbelt harnesses right there. There is an optional front seat right here. So if there's 3 kids, you could have one facing that way. Oftentimes, families will get that front seat, they'll often have 2 kids in. The 2 kids can face each other so they can be talking and chattering about there, kind of doing their own thing. But this bike comes out of the chute. It comes with that seat and with those harnesses. This particular bike has a couple things that are added on. Rear rack, very popular add-on, because then the panniers that you're used to using on your existing bike will fit right on there. That front seat, the extra bench, that's also an add-on. Other than that, this bike is a stock bike. It's how it comes. Urban Arrow is only power assisted. They do not make a non-power assisted version. There are a couple different versions of the bike, but they both use this frame, this seat, this handlebar setup. They would look identical from across the street. So that's that one. Reese & Mueller is another brand front loader. This one, if you could come in, Mariah, you can see we do have it built up with, again, 3 seats. This one's a full seat on the front. So 2 seat belts in the back, 1 seat belt in the front. So that is a bike that can handle 3 kids. This bike is shown with a rain cover. Rain cover is an option actually for all of our bikes. There is some form of rain cover for the back. So if you're carrying kids, you're able to keep the kids dry and out of the wind and out of the cold. Today we had a high of 1 degree here in Minnesota. So keeping the kids out of the cold is pretty important. Reese & Mueller, this bike also only power assist. This is a bike that comes with suspension front and rear, kind of a high-end bike. I ride a Reese & Mueller, I love it. But there also we have Yuba is another company that has front loaders, and we have those in stock. And so those are available for test riding. I will say, I kind of repeat that over and over. Test riding is really the best way to truly kind of get a sense for what's going to work. You can study like crazy, but the reality is I tend to not get too deep into those conversations until someone's able to test ride a bike, because it doesn't help to know everything there is to know about the battery on this bike when in fact you ride it, you don't like it. So it's just not something we're going to need to talk about anymore. So anyway, test riding, we do appointments here at the shop. So if you're in Minnesota, make an appointment, come in. obviously we're going to be waiting for the weather to get a little bit better. Okay, so that's front loading. I'm going to move to long tail right now. Long tails are over here. I've got 3 different examples of long tails, all of them with a few different accessories on them. This is the Yuba spicy curry, and it's set up. This is kind of a classic way of setting it up. If you've got 2 kids and one of them is, say, 4.5 or older, and one of them's 2 years old, like the 2-year-old's going to go in the seat in the back, and then the kids will stay in these seats until about 4.5 years old. 4.5 to 5, that's when kids come out of these. Your oldest child, you can often keep them in it longer. You could fit a 7-year-old in here without any problem. The issue becomes kids eventually want their freedom, and so they want to be able to have the control here. They're sitting on the bench, their feet are reaching down here, and they're holding on for themselves. It's a little bit more engaging for the kids, and so typically it's right around 4.5 or 5. Kids will be doing that type of sitting on the bike. We definitely have, there's a number of reasons to want to keep your child in a child seat longer. Just knowing where they are, or if they're squirmy as they move around, it does have some effect over you handling the bike. And so this fall, we just started carrying the kibble. This is a seat that is really just kind of a pad with a back. A 10-year-old could fit in here. So we'd be able to fit older kids in that. So it is a way to have kids be able to stay in a seat, have a buckle, but it's not the 5-point harness. So most older kids have no problems with that setup right there. This is a Turn GSD. Turn GSD is, this was our most popular long tail cargo bike last year. It's built to be a little bit more compact, and so a little easier to have it in your apartment, a little easier to take up less space in the garage. It can be stood on its end and be upright, and so if you're not going to be using it for a little while, you can bring it upright and have it in a corner. So there's a number of reasons. I will say you can love all those things, but if someone prefers the handling of the Yuba over the handling of the Turn, yeah, they're probably going to go. You're going to want what handles the best for you. I will say that the reason we sold more of these wasn't the compactness so much, and it wasn't standing on an end. Those are all little bonuses. But the cockpit is very adaptable. So they have what's called Andros steering. And so this can be moved up, moved down. It's very easy to switch between riders. So if you're sharing the bike in the family and someone prefers a more stretched out roadie type ergonomics, they can do that. And then we can bring this one more upright if someone's preferring to be more upright that way. So it would work. I guess it was kind of the comfort of the cockpit was the number one reason that this one was as popular as it is. So over here, I've got a Yuba. The Yuba Combi right here is our entry level. So this is a bike that does not have power assist and yet has the capabilities of putting 2 kids. In fact, this is just a different way of setting things up. We've got a child seat on the back, and here we could say have a 5 or 6-year-old on the front hanging on here. This bike can be set up with those monkey bars that go all the way around. Typically, whatever kit you see as far as accessories go, we'd be able to set it up on any one of the bikes. So each company has their own set of accessories. We have set up on our website, we have things set up so that once you're looking at a bike, you can add accessories to it so that you can get a sense for what the real price of the bike is. Cargo bikes themselves, while they're really neat and fun, it's one, you have to get the accessories on them for them to kind of become unicorns and rainbows and making us all happy. So you do kind of have to get a sense, if you're, you know, kind of figuring out your budget, you kind of have to figure out how you're going to be setting it up. So like I say, it is possible to look on the website and be able to add accessories as you go down the list. So that's long tail. So long tails can take 2 kids. Often, most long tails can take 2 child seats, so 2 of these type of seats. And so that's not super common, but it's not super uncommon either. So twins, obviously, is a time when you'd need 2 child seats. Or if the kids are just pretty close in age, that's another time. It kind of depends how early you jump in. We have sold bikes to families that aren't families yet, right? So this past summer, we sold several cargo bikes to newlyweds. They're just kind of thinking ahead. But also, I guess it's also really common for someone to come in and they've got a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old, and they're just so tired of their minivan, they're ready to throw it into the river, and anything new, anything different from the minivan is going to make them happy. And so that's a really common scenario, and that's clearly going to be that type of setup right there. So long tail, 2 kids or tons of gear. These would have, like that one's showing with the front basket on the front. There would be front baskets for all of these bikes. So you're able to carry kids and groceries at the same time. There's a lot of options available to you. So lastly, we're talking about the mid-tails. These are the mid-tails over here. Mid-tails are just a shorter version of those long-tail bikes. So this is very common, family or not family. We were probably about 50-50 on that this year. If the family has 1 child or more than 1 child, but you've already got a cargo bike in the family, this would be a really common solution. Though mid-tails are very popular commuting bikes. So if you're a daily commuter and you want to be able to stop and get groceries on the way home, obviously we've got just a lot of capabilities here. This is the Turn HSD. This was our most popular mid-tail last year. This is a Turn Quick Haul. And there's a non-power assisted at $1,200 short haul here. This came late in the season. We're super excited about this. This is a really fun bike. So mid-tails can take a child seat, putting one on, or they can have clubhouse minis with a storm box and a big cover. So the issue is you're limited to 1 kid on the back. We have one family that this summer they bought an HSD because they have 1 child that's several years younger than their kids. It was designed to hold a 2-year-old. Turned out everybody loved riding on the back of the bike. And so they commonly have 2 kids on the back. They figured out how to make it work and they love it. So mind you, I think if they were to do it again, they probably would have bought a long tail. But anyway, it is possible to get 2 kids on. I'm not saying we rule it out. The bike can handle it, but it's designed for a little bit less of a load or just as a great commuter. Okay, sorry to be talking fast, but I don't want to run out of time. I'll pass it on. Emma Turnquist is a local that has bought a cargo bike early this spring and later picked up another one. Emma lives in the suburbs, does a lot of riding out there. And I think you work in the city, right, Emma?
Yep.
Anyway, I'll pass it on to you at this point, Emma. Thanks.
All right. So yeah, my name is Emma. I'm living out in the burbs. So I'll get I think Ellie's getting the pictures on. So just a little bit of background. My husband and I live in Long Lake, Minnesota. So for those not familiar with it, it's probably like 20-25 minutes outside of the metro area. And I was kind of a lifelong commuter by bicycle for most of my adult life until I had kids. And then when I had kids, everything kind of changed. We made the super predictable move to the suburbs. And for the first time, we kind of found ourselves entirely car dependent, which was kind of unfortunate. And we thought about getting cargo bikes for a really long time, but we just thought that it would be really limited in the suburbs. The infrastructure where we live isn't that great for biking, and people just aren't really on the roads too much unless it's road bikes. So we just thought it would be really limited. But then we just kind of thought about it, and we just went for it last summer, kind of on a whim. And it's been probably one of the best things that we've done in the last couple of years. We've been really, really happy with it. So on the left there, that's my husband. I was actually on a run that day and they passed me. They were going to swim class or something. We have a dirt trail that is like a multi-use trail that we can use, which is pretty awesome. And there's my two kids. They are 3 and 5. And then the picture on the right there is one of our kind of adventures that we went on over the summer to a neighboring suburb. All right, you could go to the next slide. So these are pictures from our first day on the cargo bike. And the kids just like absolutely loved it. This was just a leisurely ride. This wasn't for transportation necessarily. But they were kind of instantly obsessed with riding in the bucket. And the coolest thing on that ride was we were just kind of tooling around and we stumbled upon a rainbow. And it was such a beautiful moment because we just wouldn't have otherwise experienced it if we didn't have the bike. So it just set like a really nice tone for the bikes. And if you have kids, you might relate to this, but my kids are horrible in the car. They are just like fighting and bickering all the time. And they don't do that in the bike. They just kind of smile and are really peaceful. And it's been really, really nice to have a more pleasant mode of transportation. All right, you can go to the next one. So the big thing that we thought was that the bike was going to limit us in some way. You know, we maybe wouldn't go as many places or go as far as we would with a car. But it's actually been kind of the opposite. So we've actually found that the bike brings us places our car has never gone, or kind of brings us out of the house more than we would go in the car. Like I said, my kids kind of suck in the car, so we don't like to go in the car. But the bike we love using. So we ended up having just like the most phenomenal summer, fall that we've ever had since living out here. And we kind of found ourselves on an adventure just about every day, you know, whether it be doing a mix of errands, like going to swim class or whatever, but also exploring new playgrounds and water parks. We went to farms, ice cream shops. It was just so fun. And it was definitely not a limit in any way. So just really cool. You can go to the next slide. Outside of hauling children, we did also frequently use it to run errands. My favorite one was the garden center. Partly was because it limits how much I can buy there, which is a good thing. And then we would go to the hardware store, grocery store. I did do that with the kids sometimes, but I knew if I had to get more things, like at the garden center, I would just go by myself. You know, part of the reason we wanted the bike was because I had read a report from the EPA that like trips less than 1 mile contributed to such a large portion of the CO2 emissions. And that even if half of those are replaced by a bike, it could save like 2 million metric tons of CO2 per year. And most of our errands are, you know, sometimes it's a little bit more than 1 mile, but we've been able to do a lot of our errands on the bike, and we're not fully bike dependent. It'd be pretty hard where we live to be fully bike dependent, especially in the winter, just because of the limited infrastructure. But we've been able to replace a lot of our trips with the bike. All right, we can go to the next one. And then this is the last slide. These are just some examples of some of the things that we did. We went to a farm this summer. This was one of my favorite outings that we did over the summer. We are fortunate to live on this Dakota Access Trail, and we took it out to this Gale Woods farm. We'd been there by car a couple of times, but it was just so much more special when we took the bike. We were outside. It was beautiful. The kids were happy. The kids are calmer in the bike, which is really cool. I think just being outside in the air and with nature, it's just something that the car can't offer. And then, like I said before, it just kind of prompted more spontaneity in our life and kind of these side adventures on our way home. We saw an ice cream shop off the trail, so we stopped, and something we probably wouldn't have done in the car just because, getting in and out of car seats and stuff is just so laborious, and it's so easy to get in and out of the bike. So it's just been really fun. Just a couple things I've learned from the bike is that in the suburbs, at least, it's 100% doable to have a cargo bike. And I can pretty much guarantee you will feel a sense of liberation that a car can never give you. It is tough just because of the limited infrastructure, but I've been able to plan ahead and look for different routes. I do use the sidewalk sometimes, which I don't think is always necessarily legal, but on roads that I'm not comfortable with the cars, I will use a sidewalk. Like I said, you don't have to be 100%, cycle dependent if you don't want to be. We still use our car, but we're proud that we've been able to substantially reduce our car use and minimize our gas bill too. And we're having more fun. And then again, the joy that these bikes bring is pretty immense. My only regret is honestly not doing it sooner. And then just the last thing, I'm short, I'm 5 feet tall, I'm fairly petite. And one of the reasons why we didn't think we would do this was because I was afraid that I could not maneuver it and that I'd be falling over and like putting my kids in danger. And like, that's just absolutely not true. I can't really speak to all of the electric bikes or all the cargo bikes, but with the Urban Arrow, I just really feel like that thing doesn't want you to fall. And it's really easy to maneuver. It's adjustable. So my husband and I can both use it. It's really quick to adjust. But it feels very safe, and I've never felt like my kids are unsafe. So that's all I had.
All right, thanks so much, Emma. Oh my God, that was amazing. The picture of that red barn in the back is amazing. Also, just I do remember when you came in, did the test riding, a little bit nervous at first, and yet one test ride, had you gave you all the confidence that you needed. And I also remember picking up, you were the one that got to ride it home, right?
Yep.
And that was good. So just a heads up for Q&A. Emma will be hanging out with us, so there will be some questions that might be better suited for her than for me. So both of us will be here to do that. I just took a peek at the questions. For sure, if anybody wants to pipe in, you don't have to put it in the chat. You can unmute yourself and let us know what questions you have. I saw the question about, I think it was Paul and Carol asking, are people using the cargo bikes in winter? There's no question that people are using the cargo bikes in winter. It actually was a big surprise to me. I didn't expect that at all. We have, I bet, both the last couple of years, at least 6 customers, when buying their bikes in the summer, say it's July, have added studded tires. When you buy a bike from us, you get 10% off of accessories, and studded tires are kind of expensive. So people were kind of jumping on that. Today was a high of 1 degree. Most of the day it was below 0. We had 3 different cyclists come in needing a little bit of help on their bikes, and that's just the cargo bikes I'm talking about. There were several others just on their regular bikes. So yes, the cargo bikes, all of them, we have really good sizes of tires, studded tires for them. And with electric bikes, you've got to bring your battery in at the beginning and the end. You don't leave it outside. You don't let them freeze. Just take care of them just like you would your phone. So there are some things you kind of have to be aware of, but no, completely doable. Ellie, do you have any other questions
Great.
for us?
Yep, there's a few more questions in the chat, and feel free to keep sending them in. One specifically for Emma, and you mentioned this, but if you could expand a little more on riding on the streets out in the suburbs and if drivers are respectful.
I would say most of the time, yes. I think the biggest response that we had was more of like a double take, like what is going on with that person? What's going on with that bike? And especially if sometimes I actually ride in the bucket with my kids and my husband bikes it, and then it just looks really crazy. But I would say most of the time people are respectful. Honestly, the most disrespectful people that we've encountered have been road cyclists. We've been yelled at quite a few times by road cyclists who aren't happy with us being on the multi-use trail that we use quite a bit, which isn't really just for road cyclists either. But we've had people get mad at us. I'm not sure if it's because of the size or the speed that it goes, but I tend not to go too fast on that trail. But honestly, I think from other cyclists, some of the intense road cyclists are the ones that have been the most disrespectful, unfortunately. But in general, I think the cars have been okay. We haven't really had any problems there. And there's a couple roads that I just personally am not as comfortable biking on because the speed can sometimes be really high out on the more countryside roads, like 55, 60 miles an hour, where I might ride my road bike, but I don't really quite feel safe yet with my kids. So I tend to go on the sidewalks or take an alternative route for those, which ends up usually being prettier anyway.
Awesome, thanks.
Yeah.
Next question is it realistically possible to transport the front loaders via car?
Have you tried to do that, Emma?
No,
Yeah,
there's no way. I don't think it would fit.
I definitely see it. So it is possible, but car is a stretch. Van, we definitely have every once in a while someone pulls up and back. They either have seats that fold down or they're removing seats. They're rolling it in backward. They're putting the rear wheel between the passenger and the driver. And I will say, I got myself in a pickle about 6 weeks ago. One of our Wilder Buffalo rides, it was frigid outside, and I had problems with my bike. It's one of the recent Muellers, and a friend was there with, I don't know, just a car. It was a hatchback, so not just a car, not a sedan. And it was like a very small way, maybe a Matrix. That was at least the size of similar. Anyway, yeah, I did get enough of it in that we felt safe driving it. So I don't rule it out, but it's not great. Last year, the first webinar we ever did, a woman named Flannery was our guest presenter. Flannery's family, super hardcore, cargo bike user. They had a trip planned where they were going somewhere for 2 weeks. They really wanted to have their bike there because they were familiar with the town and getting around. And they bought a long tail and a rack to put it on the back of their vehicle. So mind you, even a long tail is not an easy thing to figure out how to transport. So any of the cargo bikes are going to be a challenge, but any of the front loaders are going to be a little bit more of a challenge. So.
Next question is, for an endurance run of potentially 17 miles one way, would I aim for a front loader or a long tail?
I don't know. Are we able to pop in and ask more questions? So is this about kids? Is it about cargo? Is it just commuting? Kind of would depend. Emma, you're probably about 17 miles from your work. Have you ever used your cargo bike to go to work?
We use the Turn more. So we have the HSD, I forget the smaller one.
Correct. Yep. The midtail HSD. Correct.
Yeah. But with the kids, we've actually gone for long runs, or pretty long runs with them too, like 20 miles.
Yeah.
And it's fine in the urban arrow. The only thing summer is really the sun exposure is kind of our biggest thing. We don't have the sun visor yet, but it's been great.
Well, time to look at a sun from the
is.
sun visors. So sun is a concern with the front loaders. The kids are really, really exposed. And so in the case of the Urban Arrow, they make something that is strictly for sun, so that the kids get as much air as possible and yet are protected from the sun. So yeah, you also brought something else up in terms of, I'm not sure whether that question was related to the range. There's no question that all of them can handle the range of, say, a 34-mile round trip. All of them could do that. In the highest power setting, so like Emma's bike is the Urban Arrow, which is probably the heaviest and biggest of them. We're still going to expect 20 miles in the highest power setting. In the lowest power setting, we're going to expect 45 to 50. So is that similar? Have you had experiences like that, Emma? Like, are you getting 40 miles out of your battery?
I would say so, yeah. And now that we have the Turn as well, it shares the same battery pack. So sometimes we'll cheat and actually pack the second one if we know we're going to be going longer.
Yeah. Excellent point. So worth noting, if you do get 2 electric cargo bikes, if you can keep them both the same brand, like in the case of, she's got 2 systems that both use Bosch, those batteries are 100% interchangeable with each bike. It's not tied to a bike. So anyway.
Next question. This one's for Emma as well. So thinking about bike routes in the suburbs not being paved as well in the winter, will studded tires typically compensate, or does that require more road usage?
So that's a great question. And that's actually been why we haven't used them as much. So I haven't actually even used the Urban Arrow much this winter. In the midwinter here in December, you probably could get through because our sidewalks were pretty clear. I'm still not comfortable going on the road in the winter. That's just even before cargo biking. I was hit by a car in college in the winter time. So it's just not something I like to do anymore. But the sidewalks are really hit or miss at this point for us. So we haven't been going on them right now. They're all covered in glare ice, unfortunately. I would imagine if with studs, it'd be okay, just based on my previous experience on other bikes with studs. But Luke, you probably could answer that a little bit more about what you're doing.
Well, so one thing of note is infrastructure. It is challenging. You're hearing that Emma's kind of being careful and choosing her routes and such in the summertime. In the winter, everything gets more challenging. So the users of the studded tires are mostly city users for us, and it's because there is more infrastructure. Being able to be on a bike path gives you the ability to, you don't have quite as much control of the bikes. You're not able to keep quite as straight a line, and that's really not a fun thing to do if you're dealing with cars. Whereas if you're just on a bike path, that's something you can get away with. So yeah, it would be hard. There's no question about it.
Great. So 3 questions that are kind of more numbers based. So first, how fast do cargo bikes go? What's the maximum weight a long tail can haul? And then how many batteries can you put on a bike?
Yeah, all good. So some of the bikes come equipped with 2 batteries. All like the Turn GSD, all of those bikes have 2 battery mounts. The majority of our sales are selling those bikes with a single battery, but at any time you could add a second battery and pop it in there. The Urban Arrow It's a kit that can be added to put a second battery on it. Sounds like Emma would be a prime candidate, being that they already have a second battery that sometimes they're using. Not all the bikes, but many of them can take 2 batteries, which obviously is going to just double your range. And so it's just something to keep in mind. There were 3 questions. I got 1.
How fast do cargo bikes go?
Oh, sure. So I think they'll go as fast as you're comfortable going. So you're going down a hill and you want to go 50 miles an hour, go for it. If the question's more related to how much will they assist you? So power assist systems have controllers on them, and most of the bikes we sell are considered standard. Got class 1, means that 20 miles an hour is the most that you will get assist. So of course you can go faster than 20 miles an hour, but at 20, the motor is going to cut out and you're doing it all on your own. Some of the bikes you can get as a class 3. That Reese-Muller right there is an example of a class 3. Class 3 is still 100% assist, no throttle, but it will boost you. It'll keep boosting you until you hit 28 miles an hour. Not a real popular family cargo bike kit, but a pretty popular and desired thing if someone's just commuting and you're used to commuting in the traffic and you want to try and keep up with traffic. 28 miles an hour is actually pretty common. But there are, the great majority of the bikes, 20 miles an hour, class 1 is how the bikes are going to be equipped. I got to just do this one at a time.
That's okay. The last one is, what's the maximum weight a long tail can haul?
More than you're going to want to carry. They're different depending upon which ones they are. But lots of the long tails will handle 400 pounds. That's including yourself. But it's a lot. And I have carried a lot with cargo bikes over time. But things do get a little bit unwieldy, and starting and stopping is a little bit harrowing. I would imagine, Emma, your height and weight, starting and stopping with the 2 kids in the bike is already a bit of a challenge, right?
I thought it was going to be a lot worse. My kids are also pretty small, thanks to my genetics. But honestly, the bigger problem has been like big loads when like I have a kid and groceries or plants. Like it does take a little bit more thought of like, when am I going to stop, getting my foot on the ground? But really, once you just kind of go through it once or twice, it's very natural. And getting started, the same thing. The only time I had a problem was I actually forgot to turn it on. And so I was like, why is it so hard? Oh my gosh, I can't do it. And then I realized I didn't turn the battery on, but the battery helps a lot.
Yeah, it helps a lot.
Those are all of our questions in the chat.
Awesome. And we're a little bit late, but not much. Okay. That is everything I had for the webinar. Just a quick reminder, we'll be sending everybody out an email. There will be coupons. I know some of you are not local, and so there's a coupon for our online store. If you bought a bike and you needed some accessories, we do carry a lot of accessories that won't be so commonly found in your own bike shop. I definitely, we do not mail order any electric cargo bikes. That just, you would need to find a shop local to you. That it's just the best way to go and the safest way to go. And it's a lot of money, and you'd be best to have a service center that's going to be able to take care of your bike for you. So there's the online for someone needing accessories. Also, there's a coupon. Mariah, can you remind me how much off? $200 off of a cargo bike. So, and it's stated quite a ways out, give you time to wait for things to get better and better weather and to be able to test ride. Something of mention, I forgot this last week, but we are doing something. We're part of what's called the e-bike challenge. It's going to be March 12th and 13th, or 11th and 12th, sorry. Saturday and a Sunday, and March 11th seems to be one of them. Anyway, watch our website for that. We'll be talking about it as we get closer to it, but that will be an opportunity to do test riding indoors. So no matter what the weather is outside, if you're anxious to get on some cargo bikes, we will have many cargo bikes at the e-bike challenge. All right, so Ellie's gonna do our drawings, and that's gonna do it for us tonight. Thanks so much.